Most of us have kind of what we see in our minds as our ideal size, whether that's we just feel better at that size, we objectively are healthier at that size suits our sport better, or whatever reason. Now, ideally, we would just diet down or bulk up to that size and then just kind of hang out there. But perpetual motion doesn't work. There's no such thing as a self-sustaining system. We are either trending one way or the other, depending on our exposure to various stimuli and our adaptation or lack thereof to those stimuli. And that's just a fancy way of saying that if we want to stay the same weight, we got to kind of play this game of do a little bit of this and then back off, and then do a little bit of this and then back off. And that's where a phasic approach to training and nutrition comes in real handy. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, once you get down to roughly your ideal weight, preferably over a meaningful period of time, so that that becomes your new default size and function as an organism, and I explain how to do this in my Call for Fire long-term fat loss method video. Similar to needing progressive resistance to continue to improve in the weight room, just eating the same foods and having the same level of activity isn't necessarily going to continue long-term to sustain your newfound leanness, or if you went the other way, your newfound size. If I just did the same bike, the same distance, the same intensity every day, eventually I would start getting better at that thing, but that thing would start having a less robust training effect. And so therefore, I would either have to do more of that thing, eat less, or what I'm talking about here is switch the thing up. So the phasic approach simply means that you arrange not only your training, but your nutrition into blocks where you're sending a signal directed towards a specific adaptation. So in the case of a massing phase, you're eating and training and recovering in such a way to allow for the accretion of lean mass. In a cutting phase, you are training and eating and recovering for the reduction of adiposity while preserving lean mass. Now, what makes this a little bit more nuanced than just a never-ending bulking, cutting kind of cycle is that we ostensibly want to make the favorable adaptations stick. So we don't just want to get bigger and get smaller and get bigger and get smaller and kind of yo-yo back and forth. We want to start at our ideal weight and then add on a little bit more muscle, and then get a little bit leaner, and then a little bit more muscle and a little bit leaner. So we're not making big drastic changes like we did during that first massive weight loss for some of us, myself included, or in the case of some individuals, that first big long bulking period where you put on a decent amount of muscle. What I'm talking about here is more for the intermediate and advanced trainees who are trying to kind of fine-tune or refine what they have available right now. Now, a major component to this basic approach is the understanding that biology is action over time. And the nature of 8, 12, 16, 20, or longer week phases lends itself towards this concept. But the addendum to that I want to put in your heads is that, told you I put like 6 to 8 scoops in each scooper for my shakes in the morning. The addendum to that I want to put in your heads is that you can get a lot more from these bulking and cutting phases by putting a bridge or like a meaningful period of time in between the two phases where you allow the instructions from the previous phase to kind of run their course before you start inputting a new set of instructions. So what do I mean by this? So I did like a little kind of caloric surplus, focus training phase on, like traps, rear delts, these kinds of things for about 8 weeks. Now, realistically, that's way too short for an actual massing phase. But for little muscle groups like rear delts and stuff, you might see some meaningful change. Maybe, like half a pound or something like that if you do everything right. So I was training, eating, and recovering specifically towards that end. The past 2 weeks, I have adjusted my training and eating, but only slightly, to allow that set of instructions to kind of run its course. Run its course meaning, in those 8 weeks, my body kind of got accustomed to, we're eating a little more than we need, we're doing a little bit less intensity of conditioning than we need, we're a little bit more comfortable, so we can allow for X adaptation. X adaptation being maybe a little bit more on the rear delts. The traditional 90s magazine bro logic might have you then immediately record skips and boom, you're in a caloric deficit, you're doing more cardio, and you're in a cut. The phasic model, or at least the one that I employ, there's many different ways to do this, is I pulled back on my calories a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, down to maintenance. And then I pulled back on my lifting volume just a little bit, and then I upped my conditioning volume just a little bit, not quite to cutting levels, but somewhere in between the two values, in between the bulking phase and the cutting phase, if you will. And I've kind of been running that for about 2 weeks now, and last Monday, seemingly the instructions to gain weight kind of peaked, and I ended up at 163, I believe. And now the sine wave has been slowly tracking downwards to put me right around between 55 and 57 at the end of this 2-week period. I've also reacclimated myself to more longer bike sessions. And so now in the next several weeks, hopefully I can lean out a bit and see the results of the previous 8-week massing phase. You're a lot more likely to get the results that you want if you don't send multiple conflicting signals to your body simultaneously. And that's what makes the phasic approach to training and dieting so effective. Thanks for watching.